Welcome back, everyone. Today we will continue to focus on the second reading from the Middle East unit, Weighing U.S. Priorities in the Middle East. The last video focused on the Arab-Israeli conflict and more specifically what's happening with Palestine and Israel. Today's focus is going to be regional security for the United States in the Middle East. The main reason the United States is looking for a secure Middle East is because of oil. Oil is the main driving force for any U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East. Ever since the mid-20th century, oil imports from the region have been increasing. That makes the U.S. more reliant on Middle Eastern oil. Ultimately, you and I are on the receiving end of why it's nice to get oil from the Middle East. Oil is just easier to obtain from the Middle East, and that in turn keeps things such as gasoline prices lower. If we had to get oil from other places where it is more expensive to obtain, then we end up paying more at the pump. The United States has become involved in multiple matters in the Middle East, and again we'll turn our attention to two countries, Iraq and Iran. If you recall from the first reading, the United States was involved in a war with Iraq called the Persian Gulf War. In this case, Iraq had invaded the country of Kuwait, and the United States put together a coalition of countries and forces to kick Iraq and Saddam Hussein, the country's leader, out of Kuwait. They did this, and that's where it ended. After 2001 and the 9/11 attacks, the United States reacted with the war on terror. This has also been a driving force of United States foreign policy in the Middle East, but not since 2001 did it become a primary concern. In 2003, the United States invaded Iraq, and there were a number of reasons, but all of these reasons led to the United States launching a preventive war, a war in which the United States believed Iraq had the capability of attacking the United States, albeit they did not plan to immediately. George W. Bush, President of the United States at the time, and son of George H.W. Bush, who led the United States during the Persian Gulf War, tried to put together the same type of coalition that his father did, but was unsuccessful and went ahead with the invasion of Iraq anyhow. This time, the United States went to war with much different goals. The war against Iraq that the United States began, this time called the Iraq War, lasted a whole lot longer than those who started it ever thought it would. On top of that, those items the United States believed it would find simply did not turn up. If you will, the easiest part about this invasion was likely removing the leader from power. But the United States' goals were bigger than simply removing someone from power and only letting that country decide who would take power next in his place. That meant the United States was going to have to go through the process of nation building, constructing a nation to form a new national identity, to form a democratic government. It was not up to the challenge. Additionally, the United States did not have a firm grasp of the cultures that existed in Iraq. In many ways, just like in 1991 during the Persian Gulf War, the presence of the United States frustrated other Arab nations, except this time only more so, since the war in Iraq lasted for approximately a decade. Now let's shift our focus to the other nation that we've studied during this unit, that country being Iran. Last time we checked in on Iran, Iran was in the midst of its Iranian Revolution, through which the Shah was removed from power, the Shah that had a good relationship with the United States and Western powers, to spiritual leader Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, and that shift was representative of the anger of the people of Iran for a number of things. The people were upset with the poverty, the corruption, and the relationship Iran had at the national level with the United States and Western powers. The revolution was a shift away from the relationships and to refocus on the people of Iran. The poor relationship between the United States and Iran that came out of that Iranian Revolution still has an effect on the diplomacy and the relationship between those two countries today. The issues have just shifted a little bit. The main issue between the United States and Iran over the past 2 decades have revolved around nuclear power and the possibility of nuclear weapons. The United States being concerned that Iran and its leaders have a nuclear program that will produce nuclear weapons, and that is their goal. Whereas Iran has made clear that their nuclear program is all about nuclear power, not nuclear weapons. For a number of years, the United States, through different presidents, had economic sanctions on Iran because of concerns such as those. That continued with President Obama. However, during President Obama's second term, which was not discussed in the reading, he struck a deal with Iran that allowed them to continue with a nuclear program in exchange for the United States lifting some of those sanctions. As for Iran being a stable country, one of the big issues for the United States regarding any country in the Middle East, the Iranian Revolution has been beneficial for the country. There was a lot of corruption, as mentioned before, along with a number of other problems, and it's not that Iran is not immune to those problems at this time. In 2009, there were issues with the election when Ahmadinejad won, but in general, there have been a lot of positives that have come out of it, including, as the reading mentions, the life expectancy of people in Iran are much better in 2010 than they were in 1979, improving by about 20 years. There are still issues highlighted by the rights of women. At the same time, if you compare the rights of women in Iran to other Middle Eastern nations, women are actually ahead of the curve in some ways. With all that being said, the United States still has a lot of concerns regarding Iran and its aspirations in the Middle East and with the United States. That's it for new content on the Middle East. Shortly, my class will be writing position papers on the Middle East. We've seen the United States take a number of different positions regarding that region. The United States has been eager to nation build at times, promote democracy. At other times, and maybe the whole time, the United States' primary concern has been oil. No matter what their concern has been, you need to make the decision about what your country's primary decision is going to be regarding involvement in the Middle East. Maybe that means lack of involvement in the Middle East. Either way, see you next time.